1948, Delegate Levine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HB 1948 is a bill that I call my Good Apples Bill because it codifies things that good apples in the police and other law enforcement do already. This bill began in special session last year. It's had some improvements since then. I've taken into the concerns of senators and also of VACA, Virginia Association of Commonwealth Attorneys. And I'd like to begin by amending the bill to address VACA's concerns. So I'd like to suggest 2 line amendments. One I know your council has, one actually they don't have. The one they have is to add in line 41 the word reprimand to make clear that the disciplinary action that includes dismissal, demotion, suspension, transfer, or suspension, reprimand, or transfer of the law enforcement officer, that's one of the disciplinary measures that can be included if a law enforcement officer does not cooperate with an investigation. That one's on LIS. Should I give you the second line amendment as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
The second line amendment is to add in line 35 after the word conduct, the word administrative. Again, a 1-word amendment, so that it would read, it should be the duty of all law enforcement officers to cooperate fully with persons lawfully assigned to conduct administrative investigations into wrongdoing. That's to clarify that obviously all law enforcement has Fifth Amendment rights, all Americans do. And in a criminal investigation, they would not have a duty to cooperate. The duty to cooperate is for administrative investigations. So I would ask that if someone could move those 2 line amendments, it'll be in the posture that I want to talk about.
Mr. Chair.
Senator, who's this?
Morrissey.
Senator Morrissey.
I'd move one motion collectively to amend it, add both of those line item amendments that Delegate Levine just mentioned.
Is there a second? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, with 1 aye, the motion carries 1-0. Okay. All right, Delegate Levine, anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me explain the bill if I could. This is the Good Apples Bill. It does 3 things. 1, it says that law enforcement who witnesses another person suffering from serious bodily injury or a life-threatening condition shall render aid as circumstances objectively permit to such person. 2, if a law enforcement officer witnesses significant wrongdoing that's not of a merely technical or minimal nature, they are required to report that to their superior officer. And if not, the witness can face discipline. This part is really the heart of the bill and the most important part. It's the idea that public servants serve the public first. And if they see another officer commit criminal misconduct or engage in bias-based profiling, or even something like being drunk on the job, that the commanding officer would like to know what's going on, and that in a good police department, the law enforcement serves, the good apples serve the people first. And so report it.
Yeah, Senator, go ahead. Finish up, Levine. Go ahead, finish up.
And if not, they face discipline. And then the third part of it, also a very important part, adds to the definition of bias-based profiling, sexual orientation, and gender identity. Anyone who knows the Stonewall movement knows that Black transgendered women were at the heart of that because they were being profiled by police, abused by police, simply for being trans, for being gay. And when we passed this bias-based profiling back in 2020, sexual orientation and gender identity were excluded. This includes it and says you cannot do bias-based profiling on that basis either.
Right.
So that's the 3 parts of it.
Senator Peterson. Senator Peterson. Senator Peterson?
Stewart.
Or Senator Stewart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
thank you. Mr. Chairman, I didn't get in there quick enough, but I wanted to ask Delegate Levine about paragraph D.
Yes.
And I understand with witnesses, and I agree with the witnesses, but if it is an officer charged with a criminal wrongdoing, you're compelling that officer to answer questions against the Fifth Amendment. How do we justify, would that not be unconstitutional? How do we justify that?
Delegate Levine.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, by adding the word administrative, which we just did, I believe I resolved your concerns. The only requirement is for administrative investigations. Anyone charged with criminal wrongdoing absolutely has their Fifth Amendment rights. And if you want me to spell that out more clearly in the bill, I can, but this relates to administrative, not criminal. I could even add the words except in criminal investigations if that helps the senator. But that was the reason we added the word administrative.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Could
Senator
we
Stewart.
could we have Mr. Benjamin comment on that? I just want to make sure we're not compelling a person against the Fifth Amendment. And Delegate Levine may have fixed that, but I would like to hear Mr. Benjamin's take on that.
Okay, Senator Steve Benjamin.
No, it's just Steve. It's a good question. Because even though the investigation may be an administrative investigation, the answers could still be incriminating. But I think that your right to assert your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination would prevail over the statutory mandate.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Deeds.
I've got a question for Delegate Levine. I'm looking at the last section of the bill on lines 45 and 46. How will a law enforcement officer know a person's sexual orientation or gender identity simply by seeing them, observing them? I mean, I agree with the intent of the bill, but how will they know those things simply by observing the person?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Deeds, I would answer that the bill says real or perceived race, ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity. For example, with regard to race, sometimes people's race are not clear. But if it's real or perceived, if an officer perceives someone to be of a certain race and then acts against them to bias-based profiling, we prohibit that. If an officer perceives someone to be transgender or gay, and obviously there's going to be sometimes very obvious, two people walking arm in arm. There are certain people dressed a certain way where one may think that they're trans, but it really doesn't matter whether it's real or perceived. That's actually part of the current bias-based profiling language. And I think it applies to really any characteristics. Ethnicity, for example. One may not know someone's ethnicity, but certainly there are police who might express prejudice against a particular ethnicity. And if they believe someone is Puerto Rican and they're not Puerto Rican, but they don't like Puerto Ricans, and they say, let's go get that person. It doesn't matter whether the person actually is or isn't. If a police officer acts based on perceived bias and expresses that, let's go get that, choose your horrible pejorative. It doesn't matter whether the person's black or not. If someone thinks they're black and acts accordingly, that would be enough. So I think actually the current language of the code, real or perceived, addresses that.
Okay. I have a question, Delegate Levine, two questions really.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Isn't this something that the law enforcement agencies should handle internally? I mean, last year we passed a whole laundry list of conduct that the officer could be decertified for. And shouldn't this be done internally as opposed to spelling out in the code here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The code actually specifies an internal resolution. What it says is that it will be disciplinary action, and it gives a wide range of possibilities of disciplinary action, everything from dismissal to, as I added in line 41, reprimand. So it is up to the police agency to render the appropriate discipline, whether severe or minor. But the reason it's in the code, and let me be clear, it's in several police departments' contracts already. We're going to hear from the police chief of Alexandria, who will tell you that it's in their code already. But the point of it is, if it's a statewide requirement, it will be in training. And police officers will learn when they're trained that if they witness misconduct, if they witness serious misconduct or criminal activities, they are required to report it. And then all law enforcement throughout Virginia, no matter what locality they're in, whether they're sheriff or police, will know that it is the law that they have to report misconduct. And that prevents it from being, Alexandria requires it, but some other place doesn't. But in terms of the actual punishment meted out, one difference between this bill and the bill I introduced last year is that originally, I had a misdemeanor in the bill if you witnessed criminal conduct. That's been taken out. So all of the discipline is meted by the law enforcement agency itself. but it makes one standard throughout the Commonwealth to tell every law enforcement officer, you have to protect the public first before you protect your misconduct committing buddy.
Well, I guess my second question, and it's good to do the right thing. In fact, I passed the character education bill in 1999. They have good character, and this is kind of like a good character thing. This is what you ought to do, but shouldn't be any disciplinary action if you don't, unless it's something internally. But the other thing is, we have a Law Enforcement Officers Procedural Guarantee Act, Procedural Bill of Rights. Doesn't this conflict with that?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think so, and we have other people here who might be able to speak to that. But
Right, okay.
the reason I don't think so is because all it says basically is tell the truth, cooperate with an investigation, report misconduct. I don't see any render aid to someone who's dying. I don't see any conflict at all, sir.
Okay, is there anybody who speak in favor of the bill? Anybody out in the public would like to
There's a
speak
large
for?
number.
How many people are there that speak in favor of the bill?
We currently have 6 people who want to speak to the bill.
Okay, speak briefly. I tell you what, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'm not going to cut you out immediately, but I'm going to let you know after 30 seconds to wrap it up, okay?
V. Lamnick, please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is V. Lamnick. I'm the Executive Director for Equality Virginia, and we support the bill. We know that LGBTQ people, especially LGBTQ people of color, are more likely to be victimized by discriminatory police practices. So this bill broadens the definition of bias-based profiling to include sexual orientation and gender identity, which would effectively ban discriminatory policing against LGBTQ Virginians. We appreciate your support for the bill.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Next.
Sean Wineta, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean Wineta with the Humanization Project. We appreciate Delegate Levine bringing this bill forward. And also, in my day job, I actually train first responders and I train law enforcement in first aid, CPR, AD, things like that, Red Cross health and safety training programs. And we believe that they should have a duty to respond and appreciate him codifying this now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Nate Green, please go ahead.
Nate
Good
Green.
morning, Nate Green, Commonwealth Attorney for the City of Williamsburg and James City County, here speaking on behalf of the Virginia Association of Commonwealth Attorneys. Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, we did take a look at this bill. We do not have an official position. I did speak with Delegate Levine about some of the Garrity and the compelling issues. It is my belief that the changes that he has made have cured any problems with that, but I'm happy to answer any questions about why I do think that.
Okay, next.
Dominique Martin, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Dominique Martin, New Virginia Majority. One of the major themes when discussing long-lasting approaches to police reform is the need for change at the institutional level. We believe this bill addresses that by addressing organizational culture. The bill incentivizes a more accountable culture amongst law enforcement officers, as all officers are incentivized to ensure the department is operating at the highest professional standards at all times. And so institutional issues do not manifest over time. And so we believe this is a good mechanism to keep officers accountable to each other, and we hope you support it.
Okay, thank you. Next, is there somebody else?
Valerie Slater, please go ahead.
Valerie Slater, Executive Director of Rise for Youth, board member of the Activated People, and Political Action Committee member of the Virginia State Conference NAACP. And for the reasons you have already heard, we all support that bill.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, there's 2 more people I know on the line, but they don't see themselves in the room. Carissa Tafty and Michael Brown.
All right, briefly, who are they?
Carissa Tafty, the Commonwealth Attorney for Arlington, and Michael Brown, the Chief of the Alexandria Police.
Okay, the Arlington Commonwealth Attorney. Go ahead. Arlington Commonwealth Attorney.
Good morning. I'm sorry that my picture is not showing up. I am Parissa Degani Tafty, the Commonwealth Attorney for Arlington County and the City of Falls Church. And I've been given permission to speak also on behalf of Greg Underwood, the Commonwealth Attorney for the City of Norfolk, Amy Ashworth of Prince William County, Steve Descano of Fairfax County, and Brian Porter of the City of Alexandria. And I am pleased this morning to express our enthusiastic support of HB 1948.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Molly Voigt, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep it very brief. Molly Voigt representing Giffords this morning, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak in favor of the bill? Anybody speak against the bill?
We have Chief Michael Brown. I know he's on the phone.
Chief Michael Brown, are you on? Go ahead. Chief Michael Brown, are you on?
He's on the phone. If someone could unmute him, please.
Michael Brown.
1 second. I think he's unmuted now.
Okay, Michael Brown? Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair,
Yeah, what's your position?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman and members, Mike Brown of the Chief of the Alexandria Police Department. We're in support of the bill. We believe that the amendments that were just adopted will get around the Garrity issues and take care of the First Amendment right issues for administrative action. It's a fair standard for law enforcement, and it's also adopted by the Commission of Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Senator Peterson.
I'll ask a question of the chief. You could institute this policy right now for your own force, correct?
Actually, we already have that, sir.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Delegate Senator Morsi, did you want to say anything? All right, anybody else want to speak for or against the bill, one way or the other?
At this time, there are no other hands raised to speak.
Okay, we operate by motion.
Move to report.
All right, Delegate Senator Morsi moves to report. Is there a second? Okay, second, Senator Boysko. All right. All in favor of the bill as amended, vote aye. All opposed, no.
Ayes 6, noes 9.
6 to 9. The bill is not reported. Okay, thank you, Delegate Levine. Delegate Levine. And now, Senator